Good morning, church. So this morning we're going to talk about something that affects all of us. I think none of us that's in this room has not been affected by this. And the reality is that in life we experience this almost on it's a regular occurrence. It's not even something that's strange. It is a regular occurrence, okay? And we're talking about silence today. Now, silence is not always bad. You know, silence is not always bad. That's the reality. Sometimes you want you crave silence. You want some silence, you know. We live in a world today that is fast-paced. We live in a world today that's got notifications. You get notifications on your phone, notifications on your watch, notifications everywhere. I mean, they're coming out now with glasses that you can put up so that while you are walking, you can get your notifications and you can read your notifications. We are being bombarded with notifications, bombarded with information, bombarded just with everybody just wants your attention, just wants to pull your attention. It's advertisements, it's messages from this person, messages from that person, messages from the work after hours. And sometimes we just crave for some silence. And sometimes we get that silence. And when we get that silence, it is a period of intense productivity. When I get silence, if I have got a period or a block at work that I have got silence, I probably push out in 3 hours a whole day worth of work. Just by focusing and being silent and no distractions. No one is distracting you. No one wants your attention. You can just focus and you can just push through your work. So silence is sometimes good. And we get different types of silences. Okay, so you get that good silence, and then we get that awkward silence. Who's ever had awkward silences? You sit in a meeting and it's like just quiet, you know, you don't really know what to say. Or you sit in a gathering and it's a few people that's together and you just sit there and you're like, well, you don't know really what to say. So you make a joke. And it's usually the worst joke that you can think of. Hudson is nodding. It's usually, afterwards you're thinking, what was I thinking saying that? It's just that effect that silence had on you in that specific space. You just felt awkward. It just felt, listen, something is not right, and I'm trying to break the silence. I'm trying to push through the silence because I don't like the silence. And then when we move to a relationship, there's also a type of silence. Maybe you've heard of it. They call it the silent treatment. Maybe you've experienced the silent treatment. And the silent treatment can be very, very intense. If you get silent treatment or you give silent treatment to someone, it's very, very intense. It's an intense silence that the person that is experiencing that silence just wants to break that silence. It doesn't matter what. Doesn't matter what. I remember when I was at school and I did something wrong. I sometimes got the silent treatment from my parents. You know, and when we get that silent treatment, or when I got it, I literally did everything in my power to break it. I would talk more to them. I would actually come out of my room, you know, and talk to them and say, hi, how was your day? Well, usually I'm in my room doing my own stuff. I would clean the house. I would do the chores. I would do my chores, I would do my brother's chores, and I would do my sister's chores. And I don't even have a sister. You see, you try everything in your power to break that silence because it is intense. It's an intense emotional feeling. And interestingly enough, it's that same intense feeling and that same emotions that we get when we perceive that God is silent. It is that same feeling of I did something wrong. I need to fix this. Maybe I'm praying wrong. Maybe I'm reading the Bible wrong. Maybe I'm worshiping wrong. And as you go through that period, and I've gone through it a few times in my life, personally. And as you go through that period, you try to pray more, you try to study the word more, you try to understand more, you try to worship more, you lift up your hands a little bit higher than normal, just trying to reach God, but God just feels just out of reach. It just feels, God, where are you? I'm here in this void, and it feels like I don't have, I can't see, and I'm looking for you. I can't find you. Where are you? There's no whisper, no nudge from him, no peace. It's just silence. You're praying. It feels like your prayer hit the roof. Nothing. You just go through periods where you just like, God, I need you, but you feel distant. You just feel so distant. And we often talk about miracles and moments of clarity and powerful answers to prayer. But what about silence? What about that moments when you show up in faith, you knock on the door, and nothing happens. It seems like no one's home. And we go to Scripture and we say, Scripture says knock and it will be opened for you. Yeah, that's true. It doesn't say when. You can stand there for time. You know, when you go through silence, especially when it gets to silence with God, it can be a day, it can be a week, it can be a month, it can be years of silence. Years. And we all experienced it. We all experience it. And our natural instinct is to do what? To try and break the silence. We stand at the door and knock and knock and knock and knock. And at a time we're just like, okay, well, obviously this is not working. I'm going to try and push the door. And then I try to push the door and push the door and push the door. And then it's like, okay, it doesn't, let's just run into the door. And then I start to try and break down the door because I want to fix the silence. I want to fix the silence. We get this impression that when God is silent, we need to fix something. You see, but silence doesn't mean absence from God. And it doesn't mean that God is not concerned about you. Have you ever thought about the fact that silence is sometimes preparation? Sometimes silence is growth. Sometimes silence is saying, do you trust me even when I don't speak? Have you ever thought about it? And the Bible is full of examples. I promise you, just read the Old Testament. Just read the New Testament. You'll find examples. We'll look at the first example. Abraham and Sarah. In Genesis 12, God gave Abraham a promise. He said he would be a father of many nations. I'm going to read to you. The Lord had said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. So here's Abraham, and he gets this word. And he's like, I've got my call. I'm going to go. Something that we sometimes misread is, how old was Abraham when he got the call? Who knows? Who's 75? Put up your hands. Who's 75? Oh, getting close. Abraham was 75 when God gave him this call. 75 years old. You see, sometimes we in a phase of our lives and we think, God, you have to use me. Abraham was 75. Abraham was 75 when God gave this call. And I'm sure when he got this call and he knew he's going to be the father of many nations, I'm sure he thought, okay, great, next month I'm going to hear that Sarah's pregnant. It's great. And then 1 month turned into 2, 2 turned into 1 year. 11 years later, knocking on the door for 11 years. God, God, God. Okay, Sarah, maybe we should break the door open. And what happened? Sarah gave Hannah to Abraham to bear him Ishmael. 11 years after the call. 11 years after the call. But you see, what it actually shows us is, it just shows us how we as humans function. We believe God, we hear a promise on our lives, and then when it doesn't happen in our time, we just try and force the issue. We just try and force it through. We just try and break through, because God, you made me a steward. Maybe I should open the door. Maybe I shouldn't wait for the door to open. See, but Abraham's mistake didn't cancel God's plan. And we need to remember that God's timing is an act of His love and wisdom. That's something we need to remember. God's timing is an act of His love and His wisdom. And God was preparing them. And Isaac, the son of promise, was born. How old was Abraham? 100. 25 years after the initial call, Isaac was born. Would have he been born earlier if they didn't try and break down the door? I don't know. I can't tell you. But 25 years later, he was born. If we look at Moses, we look at how he grew up. He grew up in Pharaoh's household. He grew up in a palace. He grew up with learned people. He grew up with people that was knowledgeable. He grew up with the richest of the rich. And then there came a time in his life where he went out to Midian. And it seems like God is silent. And Moses spends 40 years in the desert of Midian, looking after sheep. 40 years. That's a long time. And we read it as, okay, so Moses grew up and then he killed an Egyptian, and then he went and then he spent 40 years in the wilderness, etc., etc. Can you hear what you're saying? Imagine you grew up in the city, and now suddenly you need to go to the wilderness where there's nothing. You don't know how to tend sheep because you grew up where? In the palace. You don't think about, oh, when is it going to rain? Where do I take the sheep and the flock to? Where do I need to do? What do I need to do? Where do I find water? You don't think about it. But God was preparing Moses. He prepared Moses for 40 years. Moses was in an intense period of 40 years of preparation on how to survive in the wilderness. Why? Because when God's call came, Moses was ready. He was ready to take the Israelites from Egypt to the promised land. How long did it take to get there? 40 years. You see, sometimes silence is preparation. We experience silence intense. We experience silence as I did something wrong. I need to try and fix it. But when we actually look at the word, we see that something different. God is taking the time to prepare you. God is taking the time to prepare you for something bigger. We look at Elijah. He just defeated the Baal priests. And he's depressed and exhausted. You've just seen God move in a mighty, mighty way. And he's looking for God. He's calling out to God. He's calling out to God, and God is seemingly quiet. God is seemingly quiet. He looks for God in earthquakes. He looks for God in the wind. Where did he find God? In a whisper. In a whisper. You see, sometimes we go through intense periods of silence, and meantime we are knocking on the wrong door. Sometimes we go through that periods of silence, and actually God is speaking to you just in a different way. We perceive it as silence, and God is saying, I've been speaking to you all the time. I want you to do this. And we're saying, God, where are you? God, where are you? I'm going to run here. I'm going to run there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And God is just trying to speak to us, but we don't hear Him because we are trying to break the silence from our side instead of being still and know that He is God. Instead of just trusting Him. God sometimes just speaks differently. Then we look at the 400 years of silence between the New Testament and the Old Testament. Seemingly silence. Seemingly God didn't speak directly to the prophets. There's no prophetic books. There's no books in that period that in the Bible that shows us what happened. And God seemed silent. But you know what God was busy doing? He was busy preparing. He was busy preparing the world. Not just you, He was preparing the world. The Greek language got populated all over the world, and people started to write and read Greek. Cities was being built. Major trade routes were being built. Major routes between different cities was built all over the world. For what? For Jesus. For His gospel to spread all around the world. God was preparing the world for 400 years. See, God's silence is not silence. It's preparation. So what does it mean for you? What do you do when God is silent? What do you do? Do you trust God or do you break down the door? And I'm using the word trust specifically here. Because a few weeks ago we did a very good series on faith. It was a brilliant series on faith. If you haven't looked at the series or watched the series, if you weren't here, please go and do so. But there's a difference between faith and trust. They work together, but there's a difference. Abraham didn't lose his faith when he broke the door and they found their own solution, or tried to find their own solution. He lost trust. That's what he lost. In that situation, he lost trust. And it's important to understand the difference between faith and trust. I'm going to show you this morning. Can I get a volunteer? Anybody? You're not going to disappear, I promise. Said. He's younger than Hudson, so. Let me just check. Yeah, no, you're not going to disappear, don't worry. Oh, there we go. Can you see this, Sid? Can you touch it, Sid? Can you stand in front of it, Sid? No, the other way around. Sid. Can you sit down, Sid? Okay, can you stand up, Sid? Can you turn this side, Sid? Can you close your eyes, Sid? Can you sit down? Can you stand up again, Sid? Can you sit down, Sid? Can you stand up, Sid? Thank you, Sid. You see, the difference between faith and trust is, yeah, it's fine. Faith is, I see this. And I'm faithful, I've got faith that it's there. I've got faith that it's there. If I stand here and I look at you, I know there's a chair behind me. Trust is the action of sitting down. Knowing the chair is not going to break. Trusting that this chair is here. Faith is saying, I know the chair is there. Trusting is, I don't need to see the chair to know it's there. When Seth saw the chair, he knew it's there. When I asked him to close his eyes the first time, I was guiding him. And then the last time, I didn't touch him. But he still trusted to go sit down. Why? Because he believed the chair was here. Do you understand the difference between trust and faith? You see, Abraham didn't lose faith. He lost trust. He believed God was gonna come through. But Abraham was like, okay, but maybe I should make it happen. Maybe God wants me to break down the door. And in so, Abraham broke a lot of things. He broke a lot of relationships. There was a lot of pain afterwards. Even generations afterwards, there was still pain because of his lack of trust. Not his lack of faith, his lack of trust. You see, faith is believing God exists and He's good. Trust is living like it's true. We need to live like it's true. Live like it's true. Faith says God will come through, and trust says keep walking even if He doesn't show up the way I expect it, or the time that I expect. You see, sometimes trusting God means simply continuing what He told you last. If you feel in your heart the last time, I need to serve. And you're like, yeah, but God, you're silent. I pray I'm ready for something different, and you're silent, you're silent, you're silent. Continue to serve. A lot of the time what we do is we get to a stage, especially when God is silent, and you are in a position where you serve, where the serving feels like a burden, and it feels like, oh no, now I need to do this again. And it's because you experience God as silent, and you almost feel like, I don't know if it really makes an impact anymore. And I want to tell you this morning, if you're in that space, God is busy preparing you, and He is using you, whether you feel it or not. Whether you're in a space of silence or not, God is busy working in your life. Trust means resting in God's character, who God is, not in what He says. Okay? And that's so, so important. If you're experiencing in a period of silence and you're like, God, where are you? Go look at what God did for you in the past. Go look at where God pulled you through. Through what stages in your life God has pulled you through. In our previous place, just before we moved here, we wanted to dedicate a whole wall with how God just came through in our lives. We want to get vinyl stickers that we wanted to cut, and we wanted to paste it on the wall, not to show people, look what God has done for me. No, to remind ourselves every time we walk into the house that God is faithful. Whether you feel He's working or not, He's working. All you need to do is be patient. All you need to do is wait. All you need to do is trust Him. So, set up some reminders for yourself. If you're struggling with that, set up some reminders. Go look at what God has done for you in your life. Open the Bible and go look at what God has done for other people in the Bible. Listen to testimonies of other people. Don't feel intimidated by it and say, oh, that person must be very holy because God is working so much. No. Listen to them and be encouraged with that. Be encouraged with that. Remind yourself who God is. God is good. He's faithful. He's near. Rest in God's character. There's so many times that I can tell you how God came through and protected me even before I got saved. Before I got saved, I was literally probably drunk every evening. And not just, oh, I'm having a beer. I mean, like, stikkend. In Afrikaans, it's like, it's wasted. What's a good English? I used to drive my friend, who also was just as drunk as me, who used to drive the car. I would climb on top of the roof of the car. And I would stand up. And I would lie down, look at through the windscreen. And now that I look back, I'm like, wow, God, you just protected me. I was so stupid. I was so stupid that I couldn't even see His hand in my life when I was like in that space. But God was there, seemingly silent, but keeping me safe, preparing me for something. When you're experiencing that, slow down and listen for a whisper. So when you go through that period, number one, remind yourself of who God is. Number two, look at your past. Look at the Bible. Look at the past, what happened in the Bible, and listen to other people around you, what God has done in their lives. The third thing that you can do is slow down and listen for a whisper, because sometimes God is just talking in a different way. Sometimes God is not connecting with you the way you are used to. Sometimes He just speaks from a different angle. Talk about it. You know what happens a lot when we go through moments of silence or periods of silence or seasons of silence, just doesn't matter what you want to call it, we tend to isolate ourselves. We tend to say, oh no, I'm not going to go to church because God is obviously speaking to other people, but He's not speaking to me. That's what we do. I'm not going to go to home group anymore because I don't feel like God is moving in my life. I think we should change the word feel, because sometimes I think that's a big stumbling block. Our feelings is sometimes a massive stumbling block. And you know what happens when you isolate yourself? You become more isolated. And in the end, you just drift away. That's what happens. And most of the time, God speaks through other people to you. Most of the time. When you're in a period of silence, there's a discussion, you have a meeting, you're in a home group, you hear just chunks of faith, you just grab onto something, and then suddenly it's like, oh wow, okay, wow. God, thank you. I heard you. Wow. So don't isolate yourself. Keep showing up. Keep praying. Keep reading. Keep serving. Even like it feels like you don't make any difference. Who's in Kidsman? We used to do Kidsman for years. And we got to a stage where we felt like, man, those kids, when you wake up in the morning and it's out time, it's like, oh man. In the beginning, it was great. We painted the walls. We're like, wow, it's like we're going to have this great Kidsman. And then the struggle came, you know. Then it felt like walking through mud. It was just like, keep showing up. Keep showing up. Why? Because you are making a difference. You are. A tree needs to be very, very, very big and very old before it gets fruit. It's not happening in a year. Maybe not 2 years, not 3 years, not 4 years. I can still remember my Sunday school lessons, some of them, not all of them, please. But some of the Sunday school lessons I still remember. Keep showing up, even like you feel you don't make a difference. You see, silence is not God's absence. It's not a sign of your failure, because we sometimes interpret it that way. Silence is not you're not failing in life. Most of the time, it's an invitation to a deeper, purer level of trust. Most of the time. Most of the time, when we go through that period of silence, God is actually telling us, I want you to trust me like you've never trusted me before. I want you to trust me that if I speak to you today and it only happens in 25 years, you will still just stand there and say, God, I'm faithful. I'm standing here. It doesn't matter how long. Why? Because I believe in you and I believe in your character and I trust you are who you say you are. Most of the time, when God is silent, He's inviting you to that level. He's just want to pull you deeper to a place where you've never been before. So when you find yourself in that dry, uncomfortable, quiet place, which we don't like, don't break the door down. Because when you break that door, you break so many things. Just sit down, pray. Even if it feels like, God, I'm praying against the roof, that's fine. You're in good company. Because everybody that's here went through that, or is going through that, or will go through that. We've been through it for a few times in our lives. And it's going to come again and again. It's part of the Christian faith, part of growth. Keep serving, keep believing. Because God's timing is always love and wisdom in action.